May I start? Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Zsófia Glatz, and we are together with Bence Komlósi, and we would like to represent you the community living initiative and basically how to implement a notion like co-housing in Hungary, post-socialist Eastern European country. This sentence is how to introduce literature to someone who does not know that books exist. It's just like a metaphor to show you the barriers that we faced in Hungary when we wanted to implement this notion of co-housing. Why co-housing? I think all of the presenters here already told us why co-housing is good for us, for you. The democratic structure, the affordable housing, the non-profit meanings, the diverse and inclusive goals of co-housing, all of it is needed in Hungary. We met the concept of co-housing, both of us in Switzerland, and after research here there, we really wanted to implement this thing in Hungary because we are both from Hungary. And but how you start it? How do you start a new movement when you have no words for it? For co-housing, there are no words in Hungarian, and still after 6 years of the implementation process, we are still struggling with this thing. We still have no words for co-housing. And then we just started it somehow. But how to make it popular and something like this? So questions like this are not questions there. So you have to introduce something which is not known, so making it popular, just leave it. After the first year, we had to realize that, okay, so this co-housing thing is not an acceptable housing solution for the elderly population, because after socialism, my parents' generation, if they hear something about collaborative or community, they are just like, no, just leave me alone, because everything which is doing something with community or collaborate is just bad. And this is because of the top-down forced. So the state was forcing families to live together, although they didn't want it, and to explain it to those people who suffered from it. It's like a no-go. You can't change the collective memory of a whole generation. And after a year, we had to realize that okay, so it's not for them. But then how to find the first groups, how to make the whole movement cohesive so that it stays together. Are there ethical banks, social banks? Not really. They are very marginal. And so there were too many questions, and then we also realized that, okay, just start it somehow. And we initiated the Community Living Hungary initiative, which is functioning now for 6 years. It was in 2012. And these were the main goals: introducing the concept, make it visible that there is something like co-housing. And the main tool was promotion. And the second part of this promotion process was like research, guiding communities who are already like sensing this notion, learning by doing. So this is really like first part was like academic research, but now we are really like in the learning by doing phase. And of course we had to find for relevant public partners who can be, so this is the list, but this is just like a tool, how to start this, how to start a very unknown concept. Look for networks and build a network. So we then started with the Facebook page, then we had this website, everything. You can say that, okay, it's not that nice, but nobody cares. It should be there, it just should be present. This is the core team, we have 7 members. All of us work on a volunteer base, so this is not our bread job, let's say. And we really function as a co-housing. So we have working groups, we have common goals. We really had to define what do we want, just like in a normal co-housing. And these are projects that I would like to show you what are the platforms for the promotion. For example, this TED Talk, which happened recently, TV interviews, radio interviews. We had to grab every single possibility to promote this thing. And the findings after this promotion process, there's many small steps are needed, many a little makes a mickle, we say. So you just have to do the small things and then we can achieve the bigger goal. So the target group, yes, after the first initiation process, it was clear that it's the young professionals, because they have the money, they have energy, and they are not against this community living thing. So we did diverse public activities. Really, we went to festivals, music festivals. We organized small talks, bigger talks in universities. This is the festival, so you can see that there was this theater play which showed to the participants how a community, how co-housing works. And then after this promotion process, we started kind of real projects. For example, we went to the university because we are architects from the profession. And then we realized that, yeah, okay, we have to show this concept, the co-housing concept, to students too, because they are the ones who will be experts of this whole notion. And this is, yes, this is a research project which was doing, which was done by the TU Budapest, the Technical University of Budapest, and this was the first thing. This was the first appearance, academical, really like official appearance of co-housing in Hungary. And it was a huge success. And after this, we started to like model how, with the community, the group who participated in this whole research, we really modeled make a model co-housing initiation. How do you do it when you are really in the process? And this is the outcome of it. It was a really nice project. And then a book came out of it, and the findings after this research, so the academical promotion was that, okay, it needs a lot of energy, but this is a good way of learning without making big mistakes. And then we also put co-housing in the curriculum of the TU Budapest. This is a research project, and during this research project, the students learned the basics of architectural research, which in this case is not the most important thing, but the most important thing was via co-housing. Co-housing was the thing that they had to research. So with this tool, they really went into the details. They really went to the small details of co-housing. So they became experts. And after we transferred this knowledge that we had, there were like not like 4 of us who were like a core initiators of the community living, but then we were like 12 people, and so on and so on. So it goes like this. This is the outcome of the research curriculum, the research project. After it, there was a huge exhibition. It was super nice. So the findings of this research project, that it's an amazing way to teach students about the topic, and that many students joined the team, the community living team, after this subject. And actually, 2 of them already initiated their own co-housing. So it really goes like step by step, small steps. And the last thing that I will show you is a co-cooking workshop, which was like, okay, we need new tools, how to show something to a group of people who doesn't even understand that topic that we would like to show them. And we went to Sheffield, and there was a very nice conference about resilience in housing, and we designed, or we planned this co-cooking workshop, which was a normal cooking workshop, but based on the basics of co-housing. So all of the decisions were made like co-housing style. They were democratic style. Everybody had a vote. We had to vote, okay, what do we want? What are the needs? Who has allergy, for example? Who wants to do the sandwiches? Who wants to do the, I don't know, the drinks? And the outcome was a super nice eating together. And it happened, we didn't know in that time, that the main architect of Copenhagen, Tina Stabi, was also in the group. And after 5 years, we met this month again. And then she tweeted this, no, sorry, it's like Instagram, yeah, that this was the best food workshop ever that she attended. And the main thing that the translation was so strong and simple that she learned that it is possible to give a felt experience to complicated processes. So what I want to say with this co-cooking workshop is that you always have to find a tool. How can you translate an unknown thing to a group of people to make them understand the topic that you are talking about? And the next thing is Bence's turn.
Everybody, I'm Bence. So the second part is more about the communities that we already have in Hungary and more about like very small scale housing projects and their findings. So the first one, we realized, as already Sophie said, that we must focus on small scale things and we must focus on the young generation. So we started this kind of movement about shared flats. We do believe this is the smallest scale of co-housing and it's called Grand Home Budapest. We try to find a funky or sexy name for this movement, and we do believe it's something like that. It's based on my doctoral research, so I think it's again about university. I can use my research resources to move a movement, a co-housing movement. So we are again like started another Facebook page, this one called Grand Home Budapest. Then we had started small-scale meetings involving people, involving potential residents for these new shared flats, for this new small-scale co-housing. Then we also invited experts from the city of Budapest, like property developers, urban design, and environment psychologists, and so on and so on. And then we use again these kind of diverse tools. So we write an article in a magazine writing about the shared flat possibilities, how does it work in Switzerland or around the world. And again, Petra is giving this TED talk about co-housing and about her experience living in a shared flat now. And all these tools that we already mentioned. This was the first finding that we had, that you have to, like, sooner than later, you have to start doing. So you have already a lot of knowledge, but then you have to implement it and you have to do the thing. You have to start with small scale because you cannot start, I think, with like hundreds of flats. So you must start with very small scale projects. And reality is the thing. So you will really learn what is going on in your city or in your country if you start doing. So you can have a lot of theoretical knowledge, but at the end you have to use this kind of learnings that you do during the work. It has a lot of potential. We also learn now there are like 3 projects running. It needs quite flexibility in a country that has no shared flats and no co-housing. So all the 3 projects are super in a gray zone some ways. And it's a good way of developing this bigger scale co-housing because the residents of these shared flats sooner than later will get a lot of knowledge about living together, about developing new co-housing projects. This is the first community. This is Sisi Crib called. Petra, one of our members, started this one. They had a community goal, and that was that all the members of this shared flat must develop their own qualities. So they want to be a better person, and they come together. They are 7 living in a 150 square meter flat, and they organize very different things, cooking. They sometimes organize flat concerts. So they invite their friends, and then they invite their neighbors, even their neighbors. In a legal and in a financial way, it's not a co-housing in terms of no co-ownership because they are renting it from a landlord, but they already developing many things. They cook for each other, so once a week someone has to cook for the other 6. So they every day can like grab their food from the fridge and they just can go with it. It's a lot of small steps again. You have to have a lot of rules. You have to clean. I think Christian, you talked quite a lot about this cleaning, cooking together, so I think it's nothing new. We cannot like implement it. We just have to learn from our past and just use it again. And sharing tasks, it's very important. And they also, even if it's only like 7 people, but they already have these kind of working groups that can also work on a bigger scale. And this is also very lucky that we have Petra there, she lives there, and she's kind of an expert also. So she sees immediately if there is something in some issues and problems. The other project is this D45. It's another shared, it's not a flat, it's a whole house. It's like, it's 4 floors, around 300, 400 square meter. And 12 people, 10 young professionals live there from architecture, engineering, and sociologists and something like that. And they have all their own private spaces, and they are in the basement, they have a community space that they use together. Previously, this building was an office building, so it has a quite flexible floor plan, let's say. And since they are architects, they managed to like have a vision how to transform it into like a very nicely functioning co-architecture, co-housing with private spaces and community spaces in a good balance. So every floor has this kind of 3 bedrooms, and in the middle there is a small kitchenette and like living room-ish something with a bathroom. Every floor has a bathroom. This is how it looked like. I think it perfectly shows this kind of community feeling. No, everybody brought together their resources. So someone has a like huge ocular, so they can like check the moon, and someone else has, I don't know, like a disco globus. So I think it's kind of fun to live like this. And this is the building process as well. So Christina, you mentioned that La Borda was also built by a community. So I think this kind of small-scale building, co-building is also part of the process. And they enjoy life. I mean, they have general community activities to maintain in their community. Yeah, best findings. So also the first and also these communities, they were not the very, very first communities in Hungary, but they just did it. So the third project I will show, they really were trying to do the best. And these first 2, they didn't want to do the best, they just wanted to do something. So they are like faster in a way. They are really flexible, so about renting, about ownership, it's not so strict, but this is how it works at the moment. Affordability, the housing prices in Budapest, they increased like double now. In the last 3 years, they doubled. So, and they still managed to have like 60% only higher. So, and it's also a finding that it's a perfect time for this kind of alternative housing strategies to do something in these countries and in these housing markets. And sharing spaces and sharing resources makes it cheaper. Community life is cool, so the residents say they really love to live like this. There are a lot of rules and community needs, but it's also part of the story. And also in this second project, there is an expert. So another a member of our association, she lives in this one, so she also sees and she can control if there is some issues about whatever. All right, and then we started to like discover the very different scales and formats of shared flats. So this one is a for-profit shared flat. We built for let's say for an investor. We built it in Budapest. It's like, this is how it looked like. And we just renovated a space for someone who will earn a lot of money with it. So this is the floor plan. It was only like 3 rooms, and then we made it like 4 bedrooms plus a living room, because it's also quite typical that in shared flats in Hungary, they don't have community spaces. So everybody has a private small room, but there are no community spaces. So if there are no community spaces, there will be no community ever. This is how it looked like now. It's interesting because it's not an intentional community, so they don't choose to live together, they just move in to their small room in this flat, because it's a kind of for-profit private investor. So there is no big like community life. So we also learned from it that it's another way to do it. This is the findings. So spaces are very important, architecture is also very important, how we develop it, no common goals, no community life. It's a statement, let's say. Then we also work a lot about inclusivity, how to develop an inclusive society, a society for everybody. So there are marginal groups in our societies, like elderly people or refugees or I don't know who. And we question how can these shared flats and co-housing develop in an inclusive city. And we do say that these spaces where we live, they have an influence on our identity. So we must live together and we must share our knowledge, our cultures. And for the privacy and this very small scale, you have to talk a lot about shared flats. And in the case of refugees, this is how they are segregated in our country, in Switzerland, for example, but all around the world. They live in isolated situations. They have to share even their bedroom with someone they don't like or they don't know. So they have no freedom. But in the case of, for example, in this refugee welcome shared flat housing in Berlin, it's an intentional community where they invite refugees and they live together, and they love this kind of way of living. And as, oh, it's my time over, a few more seconds. So, yeah, this is a very nice statement, I think. And the sack fabric, I think many of us knows. Here, there are 200 people live together, and they say, Ute, she lives in this housing, she says this amazing thing that if they can, as a community, without municipality kind of support, if they can integrate and include all diverse, like marginal social groups like elderly or disabled people, then it's a best practice to develop inclusive cities and societies. Yeah, again, like some findings, but I would only like repeat myself. And then the third community, this Rákóczi collective, and it's the third that we have. At the end, it's also a shared house, a shared building. We started to work with them, and we are an external facilitators to develop this community and to develop their co-housing. They are around 5 to 15 people, always depends on the time, how much time they have. And since 2015, we helped them. We visited several housing projects where they could move in. This was the first project we checked. We are through the architectural lenses. It was a bit expensive, or the spaces were not good enough. Then we also helped them to develop their community goals. Then we also helped them to create their smaller working groups. So once about finance, legal parts, or community building. And this is a step-by-step process. It's very important to state that it takes a lot of time and energy, but keep doing, because that's the way. Dreher Villa, it's a third project, it's a third building that they checked. This is a fourth building that they checked. It was a school. So in Denmark, or I don't know, you have a lot of co-housing projects that use schools, but in Hungary it's still different and difficult. So they moved on, checked another building, they applied for another building, and they kept doing, and our associations kept supporting them years by years. And now in 2019, they moved into this new building, and they are 7 people. They really wanted to have a cooperative legal and financial form, so they went to all the banks and to all the whatever institutes to ask for money, but nobody gave them money. So in the end, they just bought with some friends' money, they bought this building. The MOBA, it's an international cooperation, Central Eastern and Southern Eastern Europe. You should check it, moba.coop, so coop. I think it's a good way to learn also from international parties. This is their collaboration, this is what are their goals. And so also like from Ljubljana, from Zagreb, from Prague, they have people. And yeah, finding that you need 5 to 8 years to develop a co-housing. So to start the whole movement of co-housing, it will probably take even more time. And you must be very flexible during this process. So you always have to react on the possibilities. It's a very like opportunistic way of, so it's a movement based on opportunistic thinking, I would say. External support is very needed, community building is very important, but legal and financial parts are very, very, very important. This 50 plus is just a very small thing, so even like 50 plus, so elderly people started co-housing in Budapest, and after many, many meetings, they realized that there is not enough interest at the moment, so they are kind of waiting, and they are now kind of trying to involve also younger professionals, younger people. They had many like events where they started to develop common goals and common ideas. Yeah, elderly people, in terms of this kind of co-housing, it's a very complicated target group. This is our finding. They have complex needs, but they are not so flexible to change, to make changes, or to give up some thoughts. And there is not enough people who are interested in Hungary to live in a co-housing. Yeah, how to get from the marginal to the mainstream? No problem, we are super far away from this one, so you don't have to talk about mainstream, we have to talk about really like unique individual small-scale projects. Further findings, just the whole summary for these two small presentations. It's a complex story, very different stakeholders, so we developed this small diagram with different platforms that you have to use, with different stakeholders that you have to contact, and with different levels from local co-housing projects to neighborhoods, municipalities, national level, and even global level, so where you can learn from different countries. This is another diagram we developed, so what are the steps to start a co-housing project or a movement, and now we did all the 6 steps first round, so now we can learn from the first projects, and we can move on to a bigger scale or to implement even more communities. You really have to focus, I think, on the very first co-housing community, so don't start shooting all around, just take one community and develop it to make it a success story, and if you have it, then you can like show it and people will believe in co-housing. And it's a step-by-step movement. Be flexible, so don't stuck to your every small detail because it's never gonna work. And we also do believe that don't waste your time and energy on political decision makers because they will join this movement when you are enough, when we have enough communities. Learn from the international communities and start the young generation. Maybe the shared flat is a very good way of doing it. And the academy plays a key role again. Visibility, so marketing, and location. I would say these are the 2 like key things. And it must be sexy, it must be cool, people must love this kind of co-housing, and it's a marathon also, so yeah, that's it.